Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca, and in this week's video, I'm going to complete some more pages from Create This Book by Moriah Elizabeth. I was trying to decide on a video idea, and I was having another bout of being very indecisive. I couldn't decide on anything, and I just wanted someone to tell me what to do. That's when I remembered I had this. If you don't know, Moriah released a book that has a bunch of prompts in it to help you get creative and create. If you missed my first video on this book, I'll put links to it in places so you can find it. Like in my last video on this book, I want to kind of put a disclaimer that you shouldn't be expecting any super amazing or finished art in this video. The point of these types of videos is more to create and have fun without worrying too much about the result. I was considering skipping around in the book and picking prompts that interested me. However, like I said, I was feeling very indecisive, so I just decided to continue going in order. The prompt on this page is create a straw painting, paint with a straw. And to be honest, when I read this, I was like, how do I paint with a straw? So I went to YouTube and found some tutorials on straw painting. I found this one and I'm going to use it as inspiration. So before we jump into painting, I need to prep my supplies. Like the last time I used watercolor paints in this book, I'm going to create my piece on a separate piece of paper that I will tape it into the book because the paper in the book is pretty thin. I got my paints, watercolor palette, ignore the dried acrylic paint that I was too lazy to clean out, a brush, and lastly, I needed a straw. Now that seems like a very simple household item, but I wasn't sure if I actually had any. But thankfully I remembered that I have this cup and it has a straw for the inside of it. Oh, I also got my painting mug and put some water in it. So now I'm going to mix up the colors I want to use. Like I said, I'm going to draw inspiration from this video, but for my colors I want to use brown, pinks, and blues. To help my paintbrush pick up more colors from the paint, I pre-wet the colors I want to use. This helps to soften the paint. I just mix the colors into my palette. I'm doing this instead of painting straight from the palette because I wanted my colors to be a little bit more watery, especially since I'll be working with a straw. Now we are on to painting. Yay! I'm starting by painting in the background with the light blue. I want this to be the sky. To get a smooth layer of watercolor, I try to lay down all of the color while the paint is wet. That way it all flows into each other. If I were to let a section dry and then continue painting, the sky would most likely end up kind of splotchy. And that's not really the look I'm going for. I don't mind some variation and letting the paint do its thing, but I want to avoid hard edges within the sky itself. Now I had to wait for this to dry. I could have grabbed my heat gun, but I was feeling lazy, so I just waited and kind of waved the paper around. I needed the background to be dry or else my other colors will blend into the sky when I try to paint on top of it. But now it is dry, so I can do that now. I go in with some brown paint and place blobs kind of randomly along the page. Now it was time to get the straw and start blowing on the paint. I found that I have to blow out a good amount of air and also get pretty close to the paint blobs. So I do apologize for my head kind of getting in the way. I was trying to kind of make a tree shape, but it's also very hard to control the paint. However, that is kind of the point of this technique, I feel like. The whole point of it is to kind of make random shapes. Also, it can be really hard to get the paint to leave its path once it's kind of made it. Sometimes I wanted the paint to branch off, but because of the surface tension, I just couldn't get it to go the way I wanted it to. Watercolor do what it wants to do, I suppose. Once I had the shape in place, I went in with some more brown to help darken the tree up a bit since my paints were a bit too diluted. While doing this, I also defined the shapes a bit more and also added some more branches to kind of help with the flow. I don't know if this goes against the whole straw painting thing, but that's what I did, so yeah. Now that the tree trunk was in place, I could start adding the leaves or flowers, I suppose. I don't know, this is a pink tree. To maybe help me make the foliage placement kind of random, I dabbed my brush into the paint and then tapped it against my finger to splatter the paint onto the page. But if you plan to do this, make sure to protect your workspace. I ended up laying down some paper towel around my desk to help protect it from paint splatters. After splattering the paint, to help it fill more of the space, I spread the paint out a bit with my brush. I did this by doing a lot of dabbing motions on the paper. I was actually really happy I was getting to work with watercolor for this first page. For the past couple of weeks, I've been really wanting to work with watercolor paint, so this was able to kind of help get it out of my system a little bit. So the foliage was nice, but I wanted it to pop a little bit more. So I grabbed out an acrylic paint marker and added in more foliage wherever I felt like it was needed. As usual, I'm using my Artex acrylic paint markers. They are my favorite ones to use. Before these, I was never really a paint marker fan, but after using these, I have become more of a paint marker fan. And so I use these pretty often, I feel like. And I am really happy I used it for this picture since it does make the pink really pop. And so here's my finished straw painting. I'm glad I didn't have to suck up paint into a straw for this. Before I knew what straw painting was, I thought maybe I would need to do that. This was a really fun and new experience. I recommend giving it a try if you are looking to create something kind of random. For our next prompt, we have create an emoji. What's an emoji you wish existed? Oh, also, this video isn't sponsored by Raycon. I just needed something to hold down my paper. But I do really like my Raycons, so they should reach out to me. So I didn't have to think for very long when it came to my answer for what emoji I wish existed. For years, I've wanted an emoji like this to be real, but it never is. And technically speaking, it is a very simple emoji. Basically, I just want a closed eye smiley face that looks like this, but without the blush. Out of all the smiley or happy emojis, I like Kid Smile the most. A lot of the other ones just never fit the vibe that I want. However, I don't always want the emoji to have the blush. This was more of an issue back when I was single and I was messaging guys on like dating sites and stuff. Like I would want to use a happy emoji, and this is the only one that I really like. But it felt weird to include the blushies because the blushies didn't fit, or maybe they would kind of give a different idea than what I was going for. Now that the main people I text are my husband and my family, I don't really care, and I do like the blushies. But yeah, I still want a non-blushy option. That way I have another option for when I'm texting people I'm not as close to. I don't know, for some reason the blushies just feel more personal to me, and I don't know why. I probably just way overthink things. Oh, and for most of this, I'm using Ohuhu alcohol-based markers. It felt like the quickest option for making a big yellow circle. I definitely made sure to place my spare piece of paper behind this drawing so that I didn't ruin the next page of bleed through. Also, because the art supplies do tend to go through the thinner paper, I only ever work on the right page because the back side of the right page always gets kind of messy. And so when I flip it over and it's now the left side, I don't want to do any work on it. So I only work on the right page. I hope that all made sense. That was a lot of left and right and left. Anyways, here is the emoji I wish existed. The next prompt is create your survival kit. Draw items that you need to survive alone. Now to me, this prompt feels a bit too vague and I want more specifics. Mostly, where am I trying to survive? Am I trying to survive on a deserted island, in a forest, on a mountain, or am I just stuck at home in the house or something? I was honestly thinking about this for way too long, and I was thinking really hard about it. But eventually I just decided to start drawing. For my kit, I decided that I'm just trying to survive at home alone for a day or something. And maybe there's some kind of weather storm making it so I can't go outside. And maybe there's no power or something. Anyways, the first thing that came to mind was water. Because as my husband likes to say, hydrate or die. He mostly says it as a joke, but it's not wrong. For all the items in my survival kit, I'm going to be using a limited color palette of pink and blue. There's no real reason for this, I just thought it would be simpler and also look more aesthetically pleasing since everything is color coordinated. The next thing that came to mind was my blood thinner injections. Since without them, I am at risk of getting another blood clot, and that would make it hard for me to survive. In case you don't know, when I was 7 weeks pregnant, I was diagnosed with a massive blood clot in my leg. So ever since then, I've been on blood thinners and will continue to be on them until a while after the baby is born. Also, I think this is the first time I've drawn a syringe. I was thinking about trying to draw everything from memory, but I did Google most of the items beforehand and took screenshots, so I had something to refer to. I'm glad I did because it definitely did make the process much easier. Next, I knew I needed to add a food. I thought about drawing a burrito because that's been one of my main foods that I crave during pregnancy. However, I decided to go with cereal because I am the type of person that could live off of cereal. I really like breakfast cereals. A lot of times I'll eat a bowl for breakfast and then another one at night close to bedtime. More recently, I'm trying to eat cereals that have a lot of iron in them since you need more iron when you're pregnant. So I drew a bowl of what is supposed to be multigrain Cheerios. I probably should have shaded the cereals since multigrain Cheerios have variety in their color, but I didn't think to do that at the time. I don't really know if I have a favorite breakfast cereal. I kind of go in spurts of being obsessed with a certain cereal, and then I won't eat it for a while. Next, I drew my Nintendo Switch. I figured if I'm stuck inside all day, I'd want something to entertain myself. And even if there's no power, I can still play on it for a while until the battery goes out. The proportions of the Switch are a bit funky since I was trying to squeeze it into this area. It's not as long as it's supposed to be. Also, I didn't mention yet that this is another pre-made video that I made a few months ago. I wanted to still be able to post videos after the baby was born, but I knew that for the first several weeks after the baby, I would need to take a break. I am mentioning this now because I'm currently in the past, but by the time this video goes out, we'll probably know about the Switch 2 and things like that. I'm looking forward to seeing what Nintendo is going to announce and release not only for the system, but also for the games. So what's it like in the future? Did we get a bunch of exciting Nintendo news? I really hope so. The next item I drew was my prenatal vitamins. They're pretty essential. They help keep my body going and stuff. I didn't bother to sketch this one. I felt like I could freehand it with just the pen. Oh, I forgot I also added toilet paper. I was having flashbacks to when people were hoarding toilet paper during 2020. It is a pretty needed item. I also drew in a lotion bottle because I'm the kind of person that if I wash my hands, I need to use lotion afterwards, or else I start to go crazy because my hands feel too dry. So lastly, I feel like something needed to go right here, so I drew my phone. If for some reason we didn't have cell phone service or Wi-Fi, it wouldn't be too much help, but I could use it as a flashlight and maybe do other stuff on it, so I figured I would include it. So here is my survival kit. I don't know if it totally fits the prompt, but like I said, I felt like the prompt was a bit vague, so I tried my best. But working on the page was fun to work on. Drawing random items can be relaxing for some reason. For this next page, Baymax is my helper for holding down the paper. And the prompt is create a comic page. Create a comic based on part of your day. I do appreciate that the prompt gives the guidance of making the page about your day, because or else I would have no idea what to go with. I'll talk about what the comic page is about in a little bit. For now, I'll go through the process. I'm starting out by sketching my panels. Before jumping in, I planned out the page in my head and had a good idea of how I wanted the layout to be. Usually I'd recommend making some thumbnail sketches to help you get an idea of your layout. But in this case, I felt like I didn't really need to do that since it's a pretty simple page. And I've been making comic pages for years at this point, so it's something I've gotten pretty comfortable with doing. For the panels, I tried to add variety, but also add the number of panels that I felt like were needed. To help make the top two panels feel different from the bottom two panels, I made them slanted on the inside edges to add more interest. This will help keep the page from feeling too boxy. Since this is more of a slice of life sort of comic page, I was okay going with a very panel-y layout that doesn't really have anything coming outside of the panels. So here is the layout of the page. When laying things out, I try to think of how the viewer's eye will move. In many cases, I want them to go in a zigzag sort of layout. I try to achieve this motion with the panels, but I'll also use word balloons to help me further achieve this zigzag motion. My first word balloon is going to be on the right and Chibi Me is going to be on the left. I considered putting the word balloon on the left, but if I did that, the viewer's eye is more likely to go from here to here, where the second word balloon will be. So I placed it on the right instead to kind of encourage that zigzag motion once again. When I work on comic pages digitally, I usually fully add the word balloons first and then worry more about character placement and sketching things out. However, in this case, I sketched out the panels alongside the word balloons, just to help me get a better idea of how the panels will flow. I'm keeping the drawings in a chibi style, and they're pretty simple, so if I did need to erase and redo something, I wasn't too worried about it. So you might be wondering what this comic page is about. Well, the page had to be about my day, and on that day, and actually the past several days, I've been really tired. I'm tired because my body is growing a baby, but my sleep also hasn't been very good at night. I wake up a bunch during the night, and a lot of times when I'm waking up, I'm going to go potty because you have to pee all the time when you're pregnant. I also wake up with my stomach growling because it's like, hey, you should go eat some food because I'm hungry. And I'm like, no, I want to sleep. And it's like, nope, we're gonna go eat right now. And so I go and grab a cheese stick and drink some milk. And sometimes I wake up and my body just doesn't want to go back to sleep because hormones or something. So yeah, this page is about how I can't sleep. Also, for context, at this time of me making this video, I'm 23 weeks pregnant. Like I said earlier, this video is pre-made, so by the time you're watching it, my baby is most likely born. Anyways, I added the dialogue off camera because I always hate trying to spell out words while recording because it makes me second guess myself a lot. I also went over my sketch a bit with a kneaded eraser just to lighten things up a bit so I can see my line work better. I felt like it would be best to outline the word balloons first, that way I know exactly how big the text is. And then I will outline all of the word balloons, that way I know exactly where I should stop drawing. It is really interesting creating a comic page traditionally. I honestly can't remember the last time I made a comic strip or page with pen and paper. I'm really used to the digital process where I can easily move things around and resize things. If I need to move some text around or change where word balloons are, it's not really a big deal. However, with traditional, I have to be much more sure of where and how I want the placing of things to be. This process made me think about the old mangas I used to read and how a lot of them were done on paper, and it's really amazing. This, of course, is just a derpy little comic page, so I wasn't focused at all on making things super neat, like making the lines for my panels perfectly straight and stuff like that. However, even though I wasn't trying to be neat, it made me think of how artists would draw the panels by hand with a ruler, and I can imagine it took so much time and care. Honestly, if I had to make a comic the traditional way, I don't think I'd make a comic. That being said, it was fun doing this and making a comic page in a new way. Oh, and I want to clarify that I did not forget my glasses in the other panels. I didn't draw my glasses for the panels where I'm trying to fall asleep and waking up because I don't wear my glasses when I sleep, and I also don't usually put them on if I'm just going potty or grabbing a snack. So yeah, I didn't forget them. Also, if you're ever finding that you want to be creative but don't know what to create, I do highly recommend checking out the Create This Book series. They are really fun books and can really help you create new things, especially if you're feeling art blocky or kind of in a rut. You can find all 3 books on Amazon, and I'll have links to them in the description if you want to check them out. Also, it's probably kind of obvious at this point, but I am keeping this comic page in black and white. I do add some tones to my hair with a pencil, but that's all I add. So remember how I was talking about how for digital I can easily move word balloons around and stuff? Well, in this case I wanted to add a word balloon to this last panel, but it was kind of too late for that. However, I had the idea to just draw my text on a different piece of paper and then cut it out. I couldn't find my glue stick, so I used some Mod Podge to glue the balloon to the page. And ta-da! I added a word balloon. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done, so I'll take it. And here's my finished comic page about me being sleep deprived, along with the other art I made. Like I said in the intro, I'm not trying to make anything super impressive or really show off my art skills when making these videos. But these kinds of videos allow me to have fun and create when my brain can't decide what it wants to do. And I also have a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy watching the process. Well, that is all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!